The girl with the gun. Leila Khaled was at the center of an international crisis one day in September 1970. She grabbed the world's media and held it enthralled.
We had to do something. You know, a man heard about my arrest in London. So he went to the plane, he boarded the BOAC, he hijacked it with no arms. He took the plane to Dawson's Field, landed there, and he asked for the release of Leila Khaled.
قلت لها يا اختي انا ما بتخيل حالي بقدر اعمل هيك شغله. فقالت لي ليش؟ انت جريئه، بتعرف انه يعني امتلك شيء من الجرأه. قلت لها لا يا اختي، هاي بدها جرأه فائقه، وبدها وحده مش مثلي انا، بدها وحده مثلك انت، من النوع الهادئ كثير، ما ببين عليكي، طبيعي.
Leila, she spoke English, which is simple. Secondly, she was the most dynamic person around, and she had developed from the ranks upward. Leila was no founder of the PFLP. Leila was a young Palestinian woman who was merely a teacher in Kuwait. When she heard all about it, it's true that she had been a member of from her childhood, she had been a member of the Arab nationalist movement, حركة القوميين العرب. But a good many people were in that movement.
اجى الوفد الفلسطيني وسأل بيكر في عودة؟ قال لهم لا. طيب كويس. في دولة؟ قال لهم لا. طيب في تقرير مصير؟ قال لهم لا. طب في منظمة تحرير موجودة بالوفد حتى تدافع عن قضيتنا؟ قال لهم لا. أنا عم بجاوب جد، وأخي أبو عمار يعرف إنه الأجوبة حتى هذه اللحظة دقيقة، وأنها لا لا لا.
The Palestinians are a nation of people synonymous with acts of terrorism. They were the indigenous people of Palestine, comprising Muslims, Jews, and Christians. Palestine was under the British mandate early in the 20th century. In 1917, the British government promised to give Palestine to the Jews as an alternative homeland. Palestine was to become the State of Israel, calling 1948 its year of independence. Independence for the Jews meant the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians into neighboring countries: Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Egypt. The governments of the Arab countries promised to help the Palestinians claim back their homeland, but were never motivated to actually do so. Frustration increased in the weak and defeated refugees across the Fertile Crescent. This led to a new era in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Palestinians from all walks of life started to organize themselves into guerrilla units to fight the Israelis across the new borders. This resistance was led by the Arab nationalist movement, the ANM, founded in Beirut 1949 by heart surgeon Dr. Georges Habash, a Christian Palestinian. Opposition by the Arab governments of the day to the existence of the ANM meant it became an underground movement. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, known as the PFLP, was born as a result of this resistance.
What are the hell we're doing here? People are in prison fighting, and we are here just going to school. So I intended to stop this life, and I wanted to go to hold arms. I'm Leila Khaled, an Arab Palestinian. I'm a freedom fighter. I was born in Haifa in 1944. In 1948, I was driven out with my family to the south of Lebanon after the catastrophe that happened in Palestine. You know, I don't know Haifa because I was young. I was 4 years old. The only thing I remember of Haifa, the staircases, when there was shooting and clashes, we had to go down to be protected from the shootings at that time.
In 1967, Israel defeated the Arab armies of Jordan, Egypt, and Syria in what is known as the Six-Day War. Losses were huge. The Arabs lost the West Bank, Jerusalem, Gaza, Sinai, and the Golan Heights to the Israelis.
We reached Tyre in the south of Lebanon, and there we went to her uncle's house. It was in an orchard where there were trees there with oranges still on the trees. So the minute we entered, we cut the oranges. But my mother slapped us on the hands, and she said, "This is not yours. Your oranges are in Palestine." From that time, I hated the oranges.
As a teenager, Leila became a member of the Harakat al-Qawmiyin al-Arab, the Arab nationalist movement. Like her PFLP masters, Georges Habash, Wadia Haddad, and Ghassan Kanafani, she joined the American University in Beirut. But her family could not afford to finish her education. Instead, Leila went to teach in Kuwait. She was frustrated and unfulfilled.
I went to Lebanon. There, I told my mother I'm going to Jordan.
She had told her mother she wanted to visit her relatives in Jordan.
زكية خالد لبنانية فلسطينية، ولدت بفلسطين بحيفا. أمي شكت بالموضوع إنه لا، هي يعني مش قصة تروح على هاي، لأنه كان بدي العمل الفدائي يبين بالأردن وكذا. فقالت لي يا أختي أنا مش مقتنعة بهالحكي اللي حكته أختي.
I came to Jordan, to the military camp. At the end of the training, I was asked to go back to Lebanon.
On the 29th of August 1969, Leila was embarking on her new career.
سليم كامل عيساوي، فلسطيني من مدينة حيفا، مواليد 45. بعد إلحاح شديد التحقت ببداية 68. طبعا كنت منهي دراستي الثانوية، وكان المفروض كما كان يخططوا الأهل إني ألتحق بإحدى الجامعات. أنا تركت هذا الشيء والتحقت بالعمل الفدائي. حتى لما خرجت ألتحق ما خبرت أهلي وين.
Dr. Wadi Haddad was the one to think of the means to fight. I met him in 1969. I went to his house. I didn't have a place except the kitchen to sit in because all his house was closed because there were people, different people, who mustn't see each other, even the bedroom, his bedroom. I sat in the kitchen and I was waiting. He came and he asked me whether I was ready to die or to go to prison. I said, of course. I'm a fighter now, and I'm ready to do anything. He said, are you ready to participate in an operation? I said, of course. So he said, are you ready to hijack a plane? So I was laughing. He said, why are you laughing? You know, I thought that I was carrying the plane on my back and running, and everybody was running after me. That meant to me hijacking at that moment.
المشرفين بلغوني انه راح يكون معك فتاة بتتعرف عليها بعدين. اعطوني مواصفاتها، ولكن تعرف المواصفات مو مثل الواحد لما يشوف بعينه بضل هذا. انا تدربت لحالي وهي تدربت لحالها. كل انسان حسب الاختصاص اللي بده يكون موكول فيه او المهم الموكول فيه اثناء العملية.
I went from Beirut to Rome. That was the plan. Also, another comrade called Salim Isawi left on the same plane. I had a pistol, a hand grenade, and 10 kilos of TNT. There were no searching at the airports at that time.
أنا اختصاصي كان سيطرة على الطائرة وتفجيرها بعد ما تنتهي العملية. الرفيقة ليلى كان مهمتها طبعا مع المساعدة تبعي، تكون كمساعدة إلي بداخل كابينة الطيار، إنه توجه الرسائل للمحطات الأرضية.
I went to the hotel. I put everything on the bed and I was reading the letters that I had to. I looked near the bed. There was a table of buttons. Each button near it a drawing shows what the button is. One of the buttons had a crooked arrow. I wanted to know what was that, so I pushed the button. The bed began to move, so I was screaming, and I didn't know how to stop the bed. Then I put everything, wrapped all the arms that I had, and a man came from the service, room service, and I told him the bed is moving. It was like shivering, you know. So he pushed the button and he said, this is, if one wants to sleep, he would use this just to shake the bed so he could sleep. I said, I don't need any, but I wondered what was that button. So that was the first time I was in a hotel and knew that people would sleep while the bed is shaking, like babies.
كسياح عاديين يعني لابسين أحسن لبس الواحد ما بيحلم فيه لأول مرة يمكن بيلبس هذا الشيء. لأول مرة أنا كإنسان فقير كادح يعني بحمل شنطة سامسونايت بإيدي، حاطط عطر حلو، بدخن سجاير روسمان بتذكر يعني. المهم إنه كان مظهر يعني بالفعل هذا إنسان سايح راكب درجة أولى من جاي من روما لأسنا، يعني مظهر بتعرفي بيعطي هذا. وطبعا سلاحنا كان بإيدنا.
There was a girl of about 10 or 12 years. She was standing, and it was written on her T-shirt, "Be friends." You know, I looked at it. I wanted to tell her, we'd like to be friends. But we were obliged to do something that the whole world would know who we were. You know, it touched me in the heart. But I left. I thought I was thinking of my childhood, the miserable childhood I led. The school I went to was a tent. It was put in just on the street. There were no streets anyhow. And we had to go to that school. The tent had 4 classes in it. in each corner of it. One of the friends was living in the camp. So once I wanted to visit her, and of course she was living in a tent with her family. She had no slippers, no shoes. I was looking at that and remembering that once I told my mother, I don't want to go to school. This is not a school. This is a tent. And she said, thank God that you have a ceiling over your head, because we were living in a house. And others like you are living in tents. So I went with my friend. You know, when we were walking, all the time I was thinking that she has no shoes. And how can she go back to Palestine while she has no shoes? I was talking to her, if we go back, you can't walk like this. You should have shoes to you. And she said, at that time, it's okay. I can go without shoes to Palestine if we have the opportunity. So this was in my mind, that even the Palestinians have no shoes to go back to Palestine.
The PFLP orchestrated the hijacking of an American airliner. TWA Flight 840 was en route from Rome to Tel Aviv with 116 passengers on board. The female hijacker, a slim brunette with model looks and dressed in haute couture, played the leading role. Leila Khaled, 23 years old, was travelling on a Lebanese passport. Salim Essawi, in his mid-30s, travelled on an Iraqi passport.
بلغنا أحد المسؤولين أو المسؤول اللي كان مشرف علينا أنه راح يكون على الطيارة شخصية يهودية مهمة بتحاول الحفاظ عليها بأي شكل. مين هي هاي الشخصية؟ الواحد ما كان عارفها. ولذلك لما رحت أنا أحجز بروما، أحجز على الطيارة نفسها اللي هي TWA الأمريكية، اللي بالقوة دبروا لي محل على أساس الدرجة الأولى كله كومبليت مليان. لكن لما طلعنا على الطيارة فوجئنا إنه نحن موجودين بالدرجة الأولى عدد بسيط جدا. تعرف أنت مواعيد الطيران العالمي TWA بالذات مواعيد دقيقة جدا. اللي صار إنه نص ساعة تأخر إقلاع الطائرة. ونتساءل ليش؟ بهاي الواحد بصراحة بلش ينتاب الخوف انه يكونوا اكتشفوا شيء من امرنا، لذلك تاخر اقلاع الطياره. لكن بعدين عرفنا انه في مجموعه، يعني الشخصيه المقصود كان تاخرت، يعني ما اجت على المطار واخروا الطياره.
We had to act after half an hour of takeoff. The hostess came and asked me what I want, drink coffee or tea or whatever it is. I said no, but I need a blanket because it was a little bit cold. I wanted the blanket just to take out the hand grenade and the pistol. She was asking my comrade, what would you like to have for dinner?
دي تكة لحم مشوي يعني.
I was just looking at him while he was saying that. She said, I don't understand him. Can you help us? I said, yes. So I spoke to him in Arabic. Why do you ask this?
شو سمعت ليش اللي هيك بشعر بدوار. بصراحة كنت هاي الأشياء طول بدي أشوف، عم منتظر باب الكابينة ينفتح، لأن كنت بفتكر إنه يكون مقفل المفتاح أو شيء، وبالتالي الشغل صعب. فكنت مقرر إنه بمجرد ما ينفتح الباب، يعني بده يطلع الطيار أو أحد من المساعدين أو هي بدها تدخل لهم إشي للطيار للكابينة، انطلق.
When we reached to the 30,000 feet above sea level, we had to move. The hostess was opening the door of the cockpit.
حضرت لأن يبدو صينية الطعام بدها تدخلها. طبعا بإشارة من الليلة انطلقت أنا.
So we stood up, screamed, asked the people in the first class not to move.
هي كانت عم تفتح الباب، بمجرد ما شافتني أنا هاجم والمسدس بإيدي صرخت بصوت قوي جدا، صينية الطعام اللي بإيدها هذا وانطلقت، وهي عم مزعورة وعم تصرخ. دغري أنا دخلت، ولحد الآن بذكر شيء، إن الصرخة اللي صرختها فيهم don't move، أنا نفسي خفت من نفسي من الصرخة تبعي.
Salim stood near the door and he closed it. The door is small, he is very tall. So I couldn't pass. So I passed between his legs.
حسب التعليمات مال الضغط الجوي المفروض هذا أول شيء أسده حتى ما يحاولوا يتلاعبوا بالموضوع الضغط، تفريغ الضغط ما تفريغ الضغط. سويته وقعدنا، جبت ليلى قعدت جنب الكابتن.
He was telling the captain, now there is a new captain and you have to listen to his orders. So I passed with my hand grenade in my hand.
المهندس الطيار اللي معاهم لاحظته عم يطلع على شيء معين. طلعت ايش عم يطلع فيه؟ فاس تبع النجاة اللي هي يعني حاد جدا، يمكن الواحد بيقدر يحلق دانه فيها، عم يطلع عليها. فقلت له مالك؟ قال لي راسي عم يجعني. للصدف كنت حامل علبة أسبرين معي، أنا شلتها جبت له قلت له خذ، لكن ما كان، شعرت إنه مو هادي، ما راح يلتزم. ما بعرف شو عمل لي حركة تانية، دغري ضربته بالمسدس على راسه، قلت له اطلع برا.
I asked him, do you know what this is? He said, yes, it's a hand grenade. I took the pin and I told him, take this as a souvenir. Now the grenade is open. You listen to me, obey the orders. I'm Captain Shadi Abu Ghazali.
My name is Dalia Freud and I was hijacked 30 years ago. We suddenly heard a voice with an Arabic accent saying that this plane was hijacked and that we are not supposed to move and to stay still and lift our arms and things like this, and it was very, very frightening.
They took over the radio and renamed the TWA 840 flight Popular Front 1.
طلبنا من أحد الركاب لهم الجوازات كلها ويجيب لنا إياها لنا. الطيار كان هادئ جدا، قال أوكي اللي بدكم إياه يعني بصير وما في داعي لاستعمال العنف.
We were terribly sorry not having another passport because we knew that we were going to have problems since we're Israelis.
صاب كل اهتمامه على الطيار ومساعده حتى ما يقوم بأي حركة، وأوهمناهم لأنه نحن عارفين كل شيء بالنسبة للطيار، يعني ممكن زدتهم برا ونحن نقود الطيارة إذا هذا. بعد فترة ما بعرف فتحت الباب أنا عم بطلع لقيت الجماعة حاطين إيديهم، وهذا قلت له ليلى الجماعة تعبوا. فبالفعل ليلى وجهت لهم رسالة إنه ارتاحوا.
I thought about two scenarios. One is that we're going to bomb in the air and this will come an end to all of us, no matter religion and nationality. And the second worst thing that I imagined was that we're landing in an Arab state and that we have been separated from the others and that we might have been shot.
I took another map and told the captain we're heading for Tel Aviv.
كان مطلوب منا إنه نحول مرة واحدة ونطلع نتابع الهدف، لكن الواحد لما دخل بصراحة هون إحنا خالفنا إحدى التعليمات المشددة إنه مرة واحدة، أعتقد يا 4 مرات يا 5 مرات نقول للطيار يدور. ونحن طبعا بهاي الفترة بقول لو كان الطيار ذكي وعنده شوية انتباه كان استطاع أنه يسيطر علينا.
Mesmerized by the cockpit view of Haifa's coastline, they demanded that the captain circle several times, during which time Israeli warplanes were scrambled and were soon escorting the Boeing. Israeli air traffic control had a message for the hijackers.
The co-pilot said, let me speak a little bit. I gave him the microphone. He was saying, there's a hand grenade. It could explode. I said, we're not going to blow it up. Then I opened the line for the passengers to hear the whole conversation. So the man was screaming and he was saying, "You bitch." I told him, "You son of a bitch."
Syria was the final destination of Popular Front 1.
الطيار بقول هذا أقصر نزول نزلته بحياتي.
Leila told us that we're supposed to run as quickly as we can in the fields because the plane is supposed to explode in a few minutes. So we all went on this.
كان المفروض الطيارة تنفجر ويمتد الحريق تنحرق كلياتها. اللي صار قلت له ليلى اوكي انا جاهز، شعلت الفتيل، نزلت ليلى قبلي ونزلت انا وراها. المفروض بعد نص دقيقة بالضبط تنفجر الطيارة. الطيارة للأسف صار نص دقيقة، صار دقيقة ونحن على أعصابنا ما انفجرت. المفروض لازم نحن نفجر الطيارة. فاضطريت أطلع مرة تانية على الطيارة وبصعوبة، وأنا لحد الآن بفكر شلون قدرت أطلع. الطيارة عالية جدا، بقفزة وحدة من الأرض كيف وصلت ما بشعر، ما بقدر يعني كيف الطريقة هاي صارت، شلون صار معي بقفزة وحدة من الأرض. مسكت باب الطيارة من أعلى، طبعا الطيارة مرتفعة يمكن حوالي أكثر من 4 أمتار 5 مترات. كيف الله أعطاني القوة والعزم اللي استطعت أطلع للطيارة وانطلق مرة وأدخل الكابينة. وجدت في خطأ بسيط بالنسبة للمتفجرات. علما هون المفروض الواحد المتفجرات الخطأ لا يصحح، معروف هاي معلومة عند الجميع إنه الخطأ لا يصحح. صلحته ونزلت. بعد بالفعل ثواني أو نص دقيقة تم الانفجار وانقطع رأس الطيارة اللي هي أسمن شيء بالطيارة. كان مسدس الرصاص اللي معي كلياته.
ما عرفنا إلا لما انعملت العملية إنه هي مش بالكويت وإنه هي خاطفة الطيارة وهي هيك وهي هيك. ما عرفناش يعني كل تحركاتها ما عرفنا فيها.
Passengers and crew were released unharmed while Leila and Salim were under house arrest. Some weeks later, the Syrians freed the 2 hijackers.
I was told before carrying on the first mission that if I succeed, then I'll be given another mission, but a bigger one. I came to Jordan first, and there were clashes in February. After the clashes, I went to Lebanon, and there we were preparing for another operation.
The schoolteacher turned hijacker was hailed as a heroine, but her celebrity status threatened what she wanted most, a return to active service.
Participate, I have to change my face and all my features. So I went to a doctor and asked him to find out how can I change my face. He tried the first time. After 1 month, it collapsed. The things he put here, things here and here, it collapsed. I said, you put little things, you have to put bigger ones. It took me 6 months making these operations in my face, plastic surgery to change.
جابوني عشان أشوف إذا بعرفها، وابني الكبير قالوا لي جيبيه معاكي لأنه في كمان ولد هناك محل ما بدي أروح على هذا البيت اللي معزومة عليه شو اسمه بيلعب هو وياه، وهن بيعرفوا بعض الأولاد. فرحت، واحدة بتحكي إنجليزي ثم زي كأنها واحدة من السود يعني، طبعا أنا أفتخر بالسود. فحاطة حمرة هيك فاقعة كتير وكحلة وشعرها نيجرو وهيك يعني ما في شيء من ملامح ليلى اللي أنا بعرفها. وقعدنا وتغدينا ولعبوا الأولاد ويجيبوا كل ساعة الأولاد يقعدون، هي تروح لعندهم تحكي هي وياهم لأن الأولاد بيعرفوها. فلو أي شغلة الولد أو الطفل عنده بيلقط أكتر من الكبير، فجابوا 2 بيعرفوها أو 3 اللي هن طفلين وأنا أختها، فبالتالي لازم أعرف. ما عرفتها. اللي كانوا عم بيرتبوا العملية قالوا نجحت العملية، كونها أختها ما عرفتها.
The house of Wadi Haddad, I was there, was bombarded by 6 rockets. His wife and his son were injured. So we went to the hospital, and there everybody saw me. Even the doctor was, at one stage, he said, I can't go on. It's very dangerous. I told him, okay, you can just make 2 stitches here for my eyes. He said, it's impossible. Medically, it means that your eyes either to be opened or closed. I said, okay, let them be opened. He said, this is unhuman. I can't do it. So I was knocking his door all the time and asking him to make these things. He said, this is the last time and I'm not going to go more further. So I signed him a paper that he was under threat when he did it.
أنا دكتورة مريم أبو دقة، عضو قيادة في الجبهة الشعبية لتحرير فلسطين. أنا طبعا لسه طالعة من الأرض المحتلة، مكتئبة، حزينة، بدي أعمل إشي، كيف بدي أرجع تاني. السجن، من ذكريات السجن من زاوية، والأهل من زاوية، والواقع الجديد من زاوية. فليلى كانت عاملة جدولتين ولابسة عسكري، كانت ضعيفة كثير، وأنا نفس الطريقة تقريبا. قالت لي بتعرفي يا رفيقة إنه وجهك لما طلعت فيك تذكرت فعلا بذكرني بنكبة نكسة 67 كلها، فأنا لازم أبادلها بنفس الطريقة، يعني إشي مهم. فقلت لها وأنت كمان يا رفيقة ذكرتيني بمجازر دير ياسين.
Your knowledge, it's also women who led the hijackings, other hijackings.
The founders of the PFLP emphasized the importance of women fighting alongside men in the front line.
وهي اللي بيتكل عليها بالاشياء الامنيه، الاسلحه، الاشياء اللي بيقدرش الشاب بينطال فيها اوام، بينما الست لها وضع ببلادنا يعني، ففيها هي تخبي، فيها تطلع، فيها تنزل، فيها تروح، فيها تيجي.
احنا كنا في الأردن خضنا تجربة الكفاح المسلح والعسكر. جينا على لبنان أول ما انفجرت الحرب الأهلية، حملنا سلاح وطلعنا بشكل طبيعي. أنا أخذت محور ومحور، فالناس كانوا يجي يتفرجوا ويطلعوا ليش. بعدين عرفت ليش، إنه إحنا جداد بالنسبة لهم، فيش مرأة بتحمل سلاح وبتطلع.
The people who moved in to the Popular Front to take up armed struggle made a decision. Because at that time, to make a decision and join the Popular Front, you were risking your life. It wasn't fun.
Behind the PFLP left-wing ideology was a simple, vengeful morality. The world let the Israelis hijack a whole country, so why shouldn't we hijack a few aeroplanes? The 6th of September 1970 is the day that shook the world and posed a question: who are the Palestinians? At 12:20, Swiss Air 100, whilst flying over France en route to New York, was hijacked by PFLP members and renamed Flight Haifa 1. 40 minutes later, TWA Flight 741 was hijacked over Belgium, flying from Frankfurt to New York. This the PFLP renamed Gaza 1. 2 airliners flying above Western Europe were now under the direct control of the PFLP commandos. Flights Haifa 1 and Gaza 1 seemed to be heading towards Lebanon, but then the hijackers provided maps to the pilots, revealing their true destination. At 2 p.m, a third plane was hijacked over Britain. Al Al Flight 219 from Tel Aviv, a Boeing 707, had 148 passengers on board. A man by the name Patrick Arguello and a woman traveling with a Honduras passport under the name Maria Sanchez attempted to take control of the third plane.
We were supposed to be 4 on that plane, but only Patrick and I managed to be there, while the other 2 were told that there were no seats for them, so they had another flight in the afternoon. I had 2 grenades. Patrick had a pistol and 1 grenade. The minute we stood up, security men began shooting. So Patrick said, "Go forward, I'll protect your back."
It was claimed that the pistols used by the Israeli sky marshals were designed not to penetrate the fuselage.
The shooting was still going on. I was knocked by a pistol or whatever it is. I lost conscious. Then I felt as if we were flying. I heard a woman screaming and saying, "Stop bloodshed." That minute I saw Patrick. I saw Patrick breathing very heavily. His eyes are open, blood is coming out of him. Then a man came and he shot him 4 shots. I thought that it's my turn to be shot. Suddenly I felt the plane landed. Then the doors were open. The captain came out of the cockpit. The people went out. He took me from my feet and knocked me with his foot. Then I heard the man saying, "Catch her," and he threw me in the air. Somebody down near the plane took me in his hands and directly to the ambulance. There was Patrick. They were having oxygen on his face. I was screaming and crying, and the man said he passed away. I was very much furious.
Leila was taken to hospital where she was identified and then to Ealing Police Station in London. Leila was now under British control, held by Scotland Yard. The Israelis demanded the extradition of Leila to Israel.
A man came, he introduced himself as a man from the immigration. He had 2 papers, one in English and one in Arabic, and he said, "You came illegally to Britain, you don't have a visa, so you have to leave." I said, "Who told you that I wanted to come?"
The Swissair and TWA aircraft headed to a Jordanian desert and landed. Dawson's Field was an abandoned airstrip in the north of Jordan. It was under the control of the Popular Front guerrillas and was now declared Revolution Airport. They released women and children who could not endure the heat of the desert. However, they retained male and Israeli passengers. 2 hours after the attempted El Al hijack, a Pan Am 747 jumbo jet with 148 passengers aboard was taken by the PFLP and landed in Cairo. The hijackers planted 9 bombs in the fuselage and asked all those on board to leave the airplane at once. The $24 million jumbo jet was blown to pieces.
A man came to ask me. I said, "I'm not going to answer any questions unless you recognize me a fighter from the PFLP, from the Palestinian people." He said, this has nothing to do with me. I have to go and ask my government.
The Popular Front demanded the release of 6 of its members in German and Swiss jails. They gave an ultimatum. If the terms were not met within 72 hours, they would blow up the planes. Negotiations were now underway under the auspices of the International Red Cross. The PFLP demanded the release of Leila Khaled from Britain. The Swiss and the Germans conceded to their demands, but Britain was contemplating. 3 days later, on the 9th of September, a BOAC VC-10 British airliner was hijacked by a Palestinian, but not a PFLP member. The VC-10 headed to Jordan, Dawson's Field. The situation now drew the British deeper into the crisis. The PFLP said this plane is the ransom for the release of Leila Khaled.
After 5 days, the man came and he said, "We agreed on your condition to speak to you, so come with us." I went down, sat there. There were 3 or 4 men, and they stood up. This man, called David True, he said, "In the name of Her Majesty King Queen Elizabeth, we recognize you, a fighter from PFLP, from the Palestinian people." And I said, "Okay, you can ask me what's my name and what's my unit." Then he said, "You know, people said that you threw a hand grenade." I said, "No, I didn't throw it." But he said, "Yes, people said." I said, "Are you accusing me again? I don't want to continue this conversation." He said, "But your friends hijacked the planes." I said, "What planes?" He said, "TWA, Swiss Air, Pan Am, and BOAC." You know, I was just astonished. I said, "Please speak slowly because I don't understand your English." And he repeated it. I thought that Pan Am is for the 2 comrades who did not go with us, because he told me the other 2 who were booking to Al Al went to Pan Am and they hijacked it.
Leila was 5,000 miles away from events in the Middle East. The deadline was extended, but the Western governments were beleaguered by the deteriorating situation in Jordan.
بدي أقول لك إنه إحنا تعرضنا للموت وقت مطار الثورة لما انخطفوا ال4 طائرات وأنا واحدة من اللي كانوا حراسات على الموجودين.
Clashes between Jordanian troops and the Palestinian guerrillas were becoming fierce. Jordan was becoming a bloodbath. Amman was a city under siege, streets deserted, shops and schools closed, and telephone lines severed. This made any attempt to release other passengers almost impossible. Clashes between the Jordanians and the Palestinians were at their peak. This made transportation very dangerous.
كنا نجوع ما فيش أكل ونطعميهم. في بعض المسلسلات بشوفها بتخيل الواقع اللي كنت عايشته. وفي يعني وفرنا لهم الأمان وإحنا بننتصف وسلمناهم مقابل نفرج عن ليلى وعن أمينة وعن مجموعة من الرفاق والرفيقات اللي كانوا أسرى في سجون الغرب الحضاري.
On the 12th of September 1970, the last remaining hostages were evacuated from the TWA, Swiss Air and BOAC planes. The 3 planes lay on the desert airstrip, Revolution Airport. Within seconds, millions of dollars of aviation hardware were blown to pieces.
أنا إنسان ثوري، والثوري عمره ما كان إرهابي، لأن الفرق بين الثوري والإرهابي، الثوري ما عنده هدف، الإرهابي ما عنده هدف يقاتل من أجله أو عم يقاتل من أجل هدف شخصي. أنا إنسان ثوري عم قاتل من أجل أمتي ومن أجل شعبي، من أجل هدف نبيل وهدف سامي. أنا بدي استعيد حقي، وعنا بالدين الإسلامي يقولوا الإنسان يقتل في سبيل شيئين، العرض والمال، وعنا تعلمنا أنه العرض هي الأرض. فأنا عم بقاتل من أجل هدف نبيل ومن أجل استعيد حقي اللي انسلب مني بالقوة، أستعيده، أرجع لبلدي، لبلد آبائي وأجدادي. يعني
أتمنى إنه نقدر إحنا لو كان في إمكانيات نقدر نطلع على الغرب أو الغرب يجوا عنا، لأنه فيش واحد إجا منحاز حتى لإسرائيل وعنده هذه الفكرة إنه الفلسطيني إرهابي حتى بشكل عام، مش بس كسيدات بشكل فاقع، إلا يرجع منحاز لفلسطين، لأنه إحنا ندافع عن حق واضح. هن مش واضح لهم لأنه مشوه الفكرة عندهم من قبل أعدائنا، هن ما شافوا معاناتنا ولا عاشوها، وبالتالي نحن ناس فوق الطبيعيين، لأنه رغم كل المعاناة بس أيضا عندنا إنسانية عالية جدا.
And I don't mind her being free now. I mean, I don't think we should have killed her or something like this. I'm sure she did what she believed in and she tried her best, and I'm glad she didn't succeed the second time.
The British government asked President Nasser of Egypt to intervene. From his deathbed, Nasser ensured the Jordanians and the Palestinians reached agreement. On the 29th of September, the 6 PFLP activists in Germany and Switzerland, together with Leila Khaled, held in London, were released in exchange for the safe return of over 500 passengers and crew.
It didn't last long. I left after 28 days only. On a royal aircraft, it headed to Egypt, and we landed there in Cairo, and that was the day of the Nasser's funeral. It was a very sad day, although it was a good day for us.
The spectacular nature of the PFLP stunt was its weakness as well as its strength. At best, it served to boost the morale of the guerrilla movement as a whole when it needed it most. And at worst, the international community viewed the Palestinians as world-class terrorists. In February 2001, Leila returned to London to further the Palestinian cause once more, this time as a special guest, invited to deliver a speech at the Houses of Parliament.
The stories are said and written as history in a different way. Before, I read here and in other media, the terrorist. And I was asked about that. First of all, I have to say, who planted terrorism in our area? We were living peacefully in our country with the Jews. The Jews were living with us in Palestine. So let's see the whole image. We, as people who were terrorized, have the right to resist. We will fight and fight generation after generation, because I want to go back to Haifa.
شجر حيفا وبرتقال حيفا يا طير رجعني يا بلادي